But we have a lot of questions, so let's kick off. Our first question tonight is from Tony Brooks.
How long do you think Liz Truss will be able to continue as Prime Minister?
Piers Morgan.
I mean, tonight, I think she's done. I think if you come in at this stage with 2 years to an election, with the polling as catastrophic as it is, and it's a direct result of the very first thing that you do for the country, and you play casino politics with the nation's economy, and you put it all on red and it comes up black, and you then have to start rewinding and reversing half of your strategy, and there's a run on the pound. The Bank of England has to intervene and spend billions of pounds bailing out pension funds. Interest rates start soaring, mortgages start soaring. I'm not sure how she has the brass neck to stay on the job, along with her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. It's not because I'm pro or anti the Conservative Party. This is supposed to be the party of fiscal responsibility.
Which, as we all know, is entirely fabricated. They've never been the party of fiscal responsibility. They've always been the party of inequality, of widening inequality specifically. It doesn't matter. They don't believe in fiscal responsibility. Never have done. It's always been about creating inequality.
But it couldn't be anything but the opposite. So I think I'm afraid they have gambled with our economy, with our finances, and it won't be them that suffers. It'll be the poorest members of our society who are going to wake up to some horrific bills, and they're going to say, well, we're helping you out with energy bills. Well, what about the mortgages? Because they're going to dwarf energy bills. So I'm afraid I think it's been an unmitigated shambles. I think it's been a reckless gamble. It should never have happened, and it's got to stop at the door of the Prime Minister. And people say, well, you can't get rid of her, but why not? They've had about 40,000 leaders in the last few years. Let's have another one on the fire. And then I want to hear from Lisa and Andrew tonight, what are they going to do, actually, to restore the nation's
OK, well, Piers, we
finances?
may well do that, but you can let me sort that out. Nadhim.
So when Liz Truss took office, she knew that we had to do something about energy bills. The forecast was the average energy bill would get to £6,500. I was Chancellor of the Exchequer making preparations to put options in front of the new Prime Minister, and she made sure, literally within days, that people felt secure again. They were frightened of their cost of energy because of Putin.
That's not what people care about, Nadhim. I'm sorry. As I've said 1,000 times covering this particular debacle on my channel, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. Because you could have just done the energy policy and just left it there. Everyone would have been fine. Everyone would have been happy. You'd be ahead in the polls probably at this point. If you fixed the energy bills in a post-Queen's death bounce at the time, yeah, you'd probably be ahead in the polls right now. But you've done, as Piers has said, quite rightly for once, broken clocks and all that. That was a reckless gamble. They've played casino politics with the entire nation's economy, people's pensions, people's mortgages, like the amount of people have been paying for rent. They've gambled on it and they've completely screwed everything up. And they have to be held accountable immediately, if so. I'm just saying, oh, we will fix the energy bills. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. That's been wiped out by the increase in mortgage payments, whether you have a mortgage yourself or whether that gets passed on to somebody who rents. The only people who don't really have to care are people who've paid off their house, which is, the retirees that have been the architects of Conservative policy for far too long.
Putin was using energy to get back at us because of the help we're putting into Ukraine. The average family now will pay £2,500, not just for 6 months, but for this winter and for next winter. Businesses, I was concerned that we're going to see perfectly good, viable businesses going under.
So, does he just think that we're all stupid? I mean, obviously, yes, he does. But the fact that they're continuing with this, we had to because of war in Ukraine, Putin is targeting our energy. First of all, well, that's covered by the fact that you did the energy price guarantee. That's already covered at that point, so who cares? You've done that, you fixed that, good. We'll talk about everything else. And second of all, we could solve all of this by nationalising the oil and gas deposits of the North Sea and then selling it internally at cost to save the Exchequer and the public money and guarantee us energy self-sufficiency like Norway does. But we don't do that because that doesn't make the petrochemical industry that Nadhim Zahawi who made his fortune from, doesn't make them happy. And they are the people that he cares about, and not you.
That because of the energy costs, she put a package in for businesses, a massive, massive intervention. On her growth plan, who's supporting the growth plan, right? You don't have to listen to Piers Morgan. You can listen to the Chambers of Commerce, to the CBI, to the Federation of Small Business, all saying this is the right plan for growth. The National Institute...
Yeah, I'm sure the Chambers of Commerce have regular working people's interests at heart, despite the fact that they are the antonym of the union movement. The Chamber of Commerce is just unionised bourgeois, not unionised labour, unionised capital. That's what the Chamber of Commerce is. I'm sure they really care about the health of people's mortgages or the bills they have to pay. All they really care about is making sure that their clientele make as many profits as possible. And I wonder why they're happy to see huge amounts of cuts on tax and the reversal of the policy to increase corporation tax. It's weird that, isn't it?
For economic and social research, saying growth will return to 2%. If it does get there, because Liz is focused on growth, then that additional 1%, we've had anemic growth over many years now, that additional 1% would bring about 45 billion into the exchequer, which...
I wonder what the common denominator for that small amount of growth is. It's interesting how we cut the 50p rate of tax in 2011 and growth immediately stalled and has stalled ever since. And there was a thing that happened in 2010. Oh yeah, the Conservatives came to power. We've had record low growth ever since. That's really, really weird coincidence, isn't it?
Which means it pays for the tax cuts that she's introduced. Tax has got to a 70-year high, so we had to do something. Liz will deliver over the next 24 months, and you will be able to judge her and her team, I'm part of that team, on our delivery. We show by doing, and that's...
And again, you're just repeating talking points. Literally just verbatim, I will quote-unquote deliver, which is just what Liz Truss has been saying basically since the start of her campaign to become the party leader in the first place. It's just been fed line. It's so robotic and it's so obviously pre-planned. The whole country can see through it.
That's what Liz will do.
Brian.
Well done. I agree with Piers. I think it's dreadful. I cannot see how she can lead the country. And I don't think she can lead the country because I don't think people trust her. And if you don't have trust, you don't have anything. And I think that's singularly absent. And certainly what's been going on at the Tory party conference has been an absolute fiasco. You know, and we've seen it. We've all witnessed it. We've witnessed it on a daily basis. And she's the wrong person for the job. That's what I believe. I just do not think she is the right person for the job. And I also don't trust her. I don't trust her. There's something about her that I just simply do not trust. So I ain't a fan.
OK, let's hear from our audience. Man there in a blue jacket, what's it?
The government needs to find £30 billion to make the sums add up, which is truly astonishing. But coupled with that, the Chancellor is going to have to announce his fiscal plan towards the end of next month.
It's interesting as well, like him saying the issue is that they don't trust Liz Truss, and that's a really big thing as well. And that she's shown already to be incredibly duplicitous, with the amount in which that she's shown so much fealty to the weird think tanks who basically control her at this point: Policy Exchange, the CPS, the IEA, the Adam Smith Institute, the Heritage Foundation. All these people are very happy to pump money into her back pocket for favourable fiscal policy. It's weird how those two things tend to coincide, isn't it? I know the actor. I mean, I don't know if the actor's a Tory or not, but he's been critical of Liz Truss, which is good, considering they've got two. The other celebrity guest is an incredibly right-wing one in Piers Morgan. Both of them criticising Liz Truss is probably a good thing.
Which is obviously adding time pressure. How is this going to be possible?
Actually, because I'm going to get round the order of the plan, but since you mentioned the fiscal plan, it's a bit confusing in that we were told the fiscal plan, the medium-term fiscal plan, was going to be announced on November the 23rd. Then the Treasury briefed journalists it was going to be earlier than that. Then the next day the Chancellor said it's going to be November the 23rd, and then it seemed to change again. Obviously you're in the Cabinet. When are we going to see the medium-term fiscal plan?
So what the Chancellor will do is deliver the fiscal plan. Part of that is the supply side.
I'm asking,
yes.
not asking what is it,
so the Treasury,
we'll get into when
the
is
Treasury will announce when the Chancellor will deliver the fiscal plan.
So is it November the 23rd or isn't it? That's all I'm asking.
As I said, the Treasury will announce when the fiscal plan.
So we don't know.
Will be in place. And no, hold on a second. And
I'm
most
only
importantly,
asking about the date.
I hear you. And most importantly, that the Chancellor is working with the OBR, the Office
No, okay,
for Budget
I hear that. But in terms of the date,
to deliver that fiscal
either
plan.
we don't know or you don't know.
No, I'm just saying the Treasury will announce when we will, when the Chancellor.
Yeah, they're working hard with the OBR. It's a shame they didn't publish any of the forecasts from the OBR as a result of the fiscal policy that you engage in the mini budget. Weird how that happens, isn't it? How you screw up the economy and now you run to the OBR saying, "Help! We destroyed everything." When they had projections for the stated fiscal policy that you then refused to publish. I'd wonder what they might have said. It is indeed he doesn't have to worry about people's energy bills because his stables are nice and hot. We can all just crowd in Nadhim Zahawi's stables, can't we?
So we'll go to the Parliament and actually take Parliament and the nation through the fiscal plan.
So at the moment we don't know. Okay, I hear you. The man there.
Does the Chancellor know what's in his fiscal plan?
Let's get round the audience for a minute, Piers, and I'll come back to you. Yes.
You've talked about these savings that we're going to make, but people's bills are going up massively more than just the energy bills. It's mortgages. Private rent in London's gone up 12%, and those gains are completely wiped out. So how can you justify not doing your homework and letting this shambles continue?
Okay, I will come back to you, Nadhim. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions to you. Yes, the man at the back there with his hand up. Yes.
I think we live in a society which is all about throwing things away because we don't like it. We've kind of got rid of this whole let's fix it, let's work together and sort it out. We might not agree, or people might not agree with what Liz Truss is saying or doing, and of course there's a time to fix those things. But I don't think it should just be let's throw it away and start again, because we'll never stop. We'll just keep disagreeing all the time and thinking we'll get a fresh one, But time has come.
The issue is that people's mortgages and livelihoods and the place where they live are in jeopardy because of her reckless policy, right? It took a huge amount of time for Boris Johnson to be forced out of office. Whether you believe rightly or wrongly, I think rightly, and there was scandal after scandal. It's the idea that, we're just throwing things out as we don't need them. It's such a nonsense analogy, right? If there was somebody in power who at least showed us a modicum of restraint, who understand the basic premise of what they were doing, who wasn't just somebody who cared about power for the sake of power, maybe we'd be in a position to be a little less choosy with who runs the country and be able to wait it out. But people's mortgages aren't going to wait for Liz Truss to just find her feet as the new PM, right? We've got way more that actually needs doing. I mean, we can't wait. We cannot wait to let her, get her stabilizers on. She's the leader of the country. She's the most powerful person in the country, and she needs to start bloody acting like it.
For us to actually fix stuff for once and for all properly.
So when the Prime Minister talks about being a disruptor or disrupting what has gone before, does that appeal to you?
Well, yeah, because actually she's an individual leading a government, leading a party that has its sort of ways of working that needs to adapt and needs to evolve, and she's heading that up with some fresh, different ideas. It's a punt, it's a risk, it's a chance.
Yeah, well, so would be me theoretically in Minecraft jumping off the cliffs of Dover. I don't do it because I'm not a fucking moron.
But if we don't do anything, then we'll get the same result.
Okay, the woman here in the front of the glasses.
Do you think that Liz Truss has permanently damaged the reputation of the Conservative Party?
Okay, well, Lisa, ask the first question. You can answer that one as well.
Yeah, well,
how long do you think Liz Truss will be able to continue as Prime Minister?
It's not up to me to answer the question about whether Liz Truss has permanently damaged the reputation of the Conservative Party. That's up to the people. And how long she's going to last, unfortunately, isn't. It's up to Tory MPs. That's the sad fact of the mess that we've ended up in, is that a handful of Tory MPs and Tory party members chose her. She didn't let on at all that this is what she was planning to do, and then she's announced a huge package of...
I think you can be a little bit... I think you can be a little bit coy about that. Come on, we all knew that's what her plan was. We all knew. We've all seen, like, the Heritage Foundation donations. We all know what she's about. We all know her ideology. It was never really in doubt that something of this magnitude was going to happen with Liz Truss because she just refuses to properly, because she has the meme ideology of libertarianism. We all knew it was going to happen, and the Conservative membership voted for it to happen as well. Like, if anything, the Tory members are just as much to blame as the people in power as well, because they enabled them. The 0.1% of the country that voted in the Tory leadership election.
Unfunded borrowing to target help to the wealthiest at a time when most people are struggling, and she's crashed the economy. I don't really give a stuff what the future of Liz Truss is, but I really do care what the future of 1.8 million people who are about to come off fixed-term mortgages, who are going to see their mortgage payments rise by £500 a month, wiping out any of the help on energy costs. I really do care what's going to happen to them. Piers asked what we would do about it. We'd reverse this budget in full and go back to the drawing board. The reason I say that is not because there aren't things in this budget that we would want to do, like targeting help to people right at the bottom of the earning scale, but because if you don't know how you're going to pay for it, then you can see what happens. You spook the market.
Oh, God, Lisa, why? Oh, magic money tree, blah, blah, blah. You spending too much money. Right, okay, when is the narrative going to change? When's the narrative going to change? When you can just say that what you've done is you've borrowed a bunch of money to be able to give people tax cuts. Borrowing money is fine as long as it goes to something that will generate revenue in the long term, like nationalisation or even just building infrastructure on a basic level, right? These are things that you could theoretically have done. It's not the borrowing that's the issue, or at least as far as I'm concerned, the borrowing isn't the issue. And as far as the Labour Party is concerned, it shouldn't be an issue, because they're going to have to borrow money to do their green revolution that they're planning, and they'd be right to do so. The issue is how you're borrowing and how you plan to be able to effectively use that. And what they've done is they've used it to be able to chuck money into the pockets of, A, the energy companies by paying all our bills for us without windfall taxing them, and second of all, put it in the pockets of the richest people in the country by cutting all their income tax.
It's 40% of mortgage products get withdrawn, first-time buyers can't get on the housing market, and people's bills go through the roof. It's just completely and utterly irresponsible. If you want a plan for growth, you have to get money back into ordinary people's pockets and get them spending again in the economy. That's why we're saying investment in clean energy, good jobs and wages, investing in skills in young people all over this country. That's what a real plan for growth looks like, not targeting the wealthy, not uncapping bankers' bonuses, not looking after your friends in the city, but backing the people of this country to succeed.
Okay, but Lisa, I mean, look, I would say to that, great.
I think this is a good attack line, though. This line that, well, you calling us the anti-growth coalition. Whenever we ever claimed to be anti-growth, right? We just oppose your particular plan. When the response line is that you want to you want to have growth from the top down. We believe in growth from the bottom up, which is, empirically, from the studies that we have, is a much better way of attaining growth from the bottom up than the top down.
Great. I'm sure a lot of people will agree, but they're also going to say, well, how are you going to fund it? Because one of the big problems with Kwasi Kwarteng and this budget is that there's been no concept and no planning. I mean, for the Prime Minister to admit no groundwork was done.
You are witnessing a rare thing here, where I'm agreeing with Piers Morgan and he's agreeing with me.
But I think the really important thing
is also asking you how you're going to do it.
I'm actually asking you, are you prepared to tell the country how you would fund your economic recovery?
Absolutely are. So we said tax the big oil and gas producers. The profits of the big oil and gas producers, that would have given us £8 billion towards the contribution over this winter. It could raise tens of billions of pounds over the next couple of years.
And it's crazy not to tax them. Even the companies themselves. Shell was on record as saying, we would like you to windfall tax us. And they've even admitted, no, it won't stop us from investing, because these are all excess profits from the windfall that we got due to the massive spike in oil prices because of the lack of demand. This is something that we had no plans to invest with. It'll just get paid out as dividends to our shareholders. So tax us to be able to make life better for everybody. When you're to the left of petrochemical industry organisations, something's gone wrong. So when they're to the left of you, when you're to the right of the petrochemical industry.
You know it. Why was Chancellor the Exchequer? You know.
I mean, clearly, the petrochemical industry have realised that the pitchforks are being sharpened, right?
No, that those gas and oil producers are already... already have a windfall tax.
You know because you were in the Treasury.
Wait, don't both talk at the same time. Right, when you talk about that, you've got to be honest when Piers...
Yeah, Truss worked for Shell. Amber Rudd is on the board for Centrica.
Ask you a question, right? We're already taxing the oil and gas producers a windfall tax. They already pay double the corporation tax. It doesn't touch the size. Compared to what we've just done, right? The average household will only now pay £2,500. It doesn't...
Screw it, tax them again. Don't care. Don't care. They've continued getting even more profits. There's further profits than they already had. Tax them again. I don't care. Just tax them again. They have literally said that a second round of taxation would not stymie investment, which is the real problem, apparently, of taxing big oil, is because that would lead to a less investment, as if they would reach their kind of peak investment in the UK anyway.
Touch the side. So you need to be honest about this. In what you say to the nation.
Let Lisa answer. Okay, you talk about being honest. You were the Chancellor of the Exchequer until a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Tell us what the Treasury forecasts are for the profits of the energy giants.
So, first of all...
I'll tell you the answer.
It's spurious.
It's 170 billion.
That's not true, because, again, that's another lie.
What is it, then?
170 billion is around the whole world.
What is it?
That is the whole of the energy industry in the world.
Well,
You're not going to tax the whole world's energy output, right?
Tell us what the forecasts are and why you're not prepared to tax the profits of people who...
Wait a minute, stop.
Nadhim,
I'm sorry. If you both talk at the same time, no one is going to hear anything. Can you hear what's going on when everyone's talking at the same time? So let's not do that. We haven't heard from Wilfred yet, so I'd like to hear what you've got to say.
Okay. 4 weeks. We're actually trying to say that after 4 weeks, we are going to make a decision about whether Liz is any good or not. If we were having this conversation...
I thought you were giving her 4 weeks. No, you're saying we shouldn't
what
be
I'm just
deciding
saying is that
4
we're
weeks.
having this discussion about whether she's going to be Prime Minister based on the performance of 4 weeks. I just think, in all fairness, it's just a ridiculous conversation to be having. If it was if she had 12 months, it would be a fair conversation.
But quite a few Conservative MPs are having this conversation.
Look, there's a lot of people, you know, the thing that has happened at the moment, she's being bold. What she's trying to do is something very, very bold. And when you do try and...
It'll be bold of me to run into the wall 1,000 times in the hope that I would break through and gain superpowers. Yeah, it'd be bold. It'd be dumb. It'd be ridiculous. It would have negative utility and plenty of it, right? But bold it certainly would also be. That's a word you could use to describe it.
Do things bold. Sometimes you get it wrong. Earlier on, I was saying the key thing for success is that you need to be able to accept that you do fail at some things. And I say this, the key thing when you do get it wrong is that you need to pivot, and you need to pivot fast. You have to admit you've made a mistake and you've got to move on. If you live in a climate where people are afraid to fail, you stand still, you stagnate. So if we all agree we need to do something, we've got to change the orthodoxy, we have to give people a chance, and you've got to give them more than 4 weeks before you decide whether they're any good or not.
So when the ex-Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, says she's got 10 days...
Well, that's just going a bit too far. You mean, that's ridiculous.
He's an entrepreneur. He came to the UK from Jamaica as a child, and then started the Black Farmers Company. Sells products. I have no idea what he sells.
Ridiculous to say that somebody has only got 5 weeks before we determine whether they're any good or not. It's ridiculous.
The woman there with black hair and the blue top. Yes, you.
Precisely how will Liz Truss grow the economy? We haven't seen any plans for growth.
Okay, and the woman next to you.
No, but you don't get it. She's read the tea leaves, and the tea leaves state that if you give extra money to millionaires, you will get growth magically. It will fly down from the growth tree.
I was just going to say that she was elected by a very small minority of the population. She's being bold. She's moved away from the Conservative manifesto of 2019. Isn't it time that the country had a choice?
So you think she hasn't got a mandate to do the things that she's doing?
I don't think she has a mandate.
Well, no, she has no mandate. There's no opinion about this. She literally has no mandate. She wasn't elected by the country. It's a clear divergence from what was laid out in the manifesto in 2019, which people actually voted on. She has no mandate. There's no mandate. Stop making implying there's some kind of air between whether or not there should or shouldn't be a mandate. There is no mandate. Stop making people think there might even be a mandate. There is no mandate.
If she has got a mandate, then she should be brave enough to have it tested with the electorate.
Nadhim?
So it's a really important question about how we're going to grow the economy.
But the question is, does she have a mandate?
I think, well, first of all, we have a democracy where a leader was elected, but if that leader is then removed, we have a process. We will have an
we've
election.
got the former culture secretary, of course, hang on, Nadine Dorries, saying we have no mandate from the people to do this, i.e. to do the things that the government that you're serving in is doing. People voted in 2019 on the policy promises we made. If we don't want to deliver on the deal, we need a fresh mandate. She's wrong about that, is she?
Well, what I'm saying to you is we have a process here. Liz stood on an agenda that she's delivering against. The lady was asking about how we're going to return to growth. So the thing I talked about energy earlier, about keeping every household's average energy bill will be at £2,500. That actually has an impact on inflation. It brings inflation down for up to 5%. That's a good thing. Why? Because inflation is what hurts the most vulnerable. So embedding high inflation is a...
You got both of the plans have made inflation worse. Excess borrowing increases the money supply. Tax cuts increase aggregate demand. It doesn't matter what school of economics you're from, both of these things are things which could be seen to be cause inflation. I understand that you've capped the energy prices, and that's a good thing, but it doesn't give you an excuse for doing multiple other things that will also then completely reverse that, plus also not get any kind of grasp on inflation.
Bad thing. Her policies is making sure that we grow as well as bear down on inflation. How do we grow? You cut taxes. You keep 31 million people can keep more.
There's no evidence for any of this shit. There's no evidence. In fact, there is evidence. There was lots of evidence to the contrary. The IMF, who just a couple of weeks ago was castigating her for this specifically because they could see that she was going to impact the most vulnerable. The fucking International Monetary Fund, the institution that debt traps poor nations in the global south, forces them to strip their welfare programs away and become more free marketized to be able to by giving them poor terms on loan agreements. That's the same IMF that also did the study to find that tax cuts for the rich do not trickle down and don't have any extraneous effects on growth. It's just a complete lie. That's what I meant when I was talking about how it's almost just like almost like a religious kind of fervor that they have for this shit, and how she's basically reading the tea leaves. Well, of course she is, because there's no evidence that any of what she's doing is economically beneficial.
Or of their hard-earned
So Nadhim, just on the point about taxes, you've got the Institute for Fiscal Studies saying that for every £1 given to households through these tax cuts, £2 is being taken away because the tax and benefit thresholds have been frozen. So what they are saying is that despite these tax cuts, people are actually going to be worse off.
Great question. So let me deal with that.
Well, I'm just stating, I'm not asking a question, I'm just saying that's what they're saying.
So you'll also know that you can earn up to £12,750 now, up from £6,500. Right, and you don't pay any tax. That's the highest threshold in the G20.
But
right?
so just to be clear, is the Institute for Fiscal
That's been around for a while now.
Studies wrong on that
No,
fact?
what I'm saying to you
people will
is,
actually be worse off because of the freezing the tax threshold.
No, what I'm saying to you, the tax threshold wasn't touched by Liz Truss's growth plan, but we moved to reduce the tax for 31 million people from 20p in the pound to 19p in the pound.
Woo! Everyone can enjoy your extra £180 this year.
Next year, right? That's a good thing because it keeps money in people's pockets.
So the IFS is...
15 whole pound a month. You can go to the movies. By yourself.
Sorry, just to be completely clear.
Yes.
Because it's very important, I think, to everybody here. Tell me if you think this is worth pursuing. If the Institute for Fiscal Studies is saying that people will be worse off, are they wrong about that? You should know, obviously, as a former Chancellor.
No, what I'm saying to you is we already moved on thresholds. We've already moved to the highest tax threshold in the G20.
I'm not getting an answer.
So you can earn £12,750 and not pay tax at all. But can I just finish my point?
In the nice possible way,
No, you've not bothered answering the question. You've just deflected, like, literally every single Tory MP who's been on TV in the last 2 weeks.
I don't think you're answering the question.
Well, no, I was answering the question. You asked about thresholds. But I answered.
I asked if the Institute for Studies is right, that people are going to be worse off.
No,
the
IFS was looking at whether thresholds were changed. No, they haven't. I'm giving you what we've done on thresholds.
OK, the man in the pink shirt.
Liz Truss wasn't elected from us as a nation. She was elected by a small selection of people. She hasn't got a mandate to represent all of us. And just to go back to your point about making mistakes, I was speaking to my apprentice today about making mistakes. It's an opportunity to learn. I get that. Some positions and roles, you don't get that opportunity. If you're flying the plane, you can't make a mistake. If you're a surgeon, you can't make a mistake. She's the Prime Minister.
Absolutely. It is absolutely impossible to say that as a human being, whatever you do, you can't make mistakes. It's just impossible.
Well, I mean, the pilot analogy is a good one. Like, if you make a mistake as a pilot, like, everyone gets Minecrafted in the same way that people will also get Minecrafted, theoretically, by Liz Truss's plans and what's going to happen over the winter, or when they lose their house. Like,
Possible to even think that. It's just that in how we evolve, how we develop, is learning by our mistakes. There is no human being alive that can actually say they've never made a mistake. And to have that expectation of somebody is just a ridiculous expectation.
But if I just say, we're not at a time where we can afford these kind of mistakes. We're in a very crucial position. We simply can't afford these kind of mistakes. And they're being made time and time and time again. Okay. And it's got to stop. We need some...
Based. Yeah, it does have a kind of Thomas Sowell kind of vibe, really, doesn't he?
Some vision, but we have no vision. This party has absolutely no vision.
Brian, let me just say something. One of the greatest leaders, Winston Churchill, one of our greatest leaders, made some big mistakes where lives were lost. And from those lessons,
I'm sorry, there's a difference between wartime and engaging in, you know, prudent fiscal policy.
And went on to be a brilliant leader. So no one could sit here and tell me...
You're not seriously comparing Winston Churchill...
Don't start. No, I'm not comparing the two, but I'm just saying even great people make mistakes. I'm saying that's a cheap shot. I'm saying even great people make mistakes, and it's about would you learn from that mistake?
So you're saying that Liz Truss is a great person?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
Well, I think we've got a pretty shrewd idea. I think we've got a very shrewd idea.
You cannot say somebody's a good or great after 4 weeks. I just think that's a bit unreasonable.
She literally tanked the economy with a mini budget. She tanked it. She crashed the economy. The pound fell to the lowest level ever against the dollar. People's mortgages are going to skyrocket. This is all baloney.
Okay,
she and Kwasi Kwarteng, her chancellor, gambled with the nation's economy, and it has failed spectacularly.
So if you
and a great person, actually, a great person would concede, you know what, we had a go at this, it was horrendous, we've had to rein it all back, we're going to do the honourable thing, we're going to let somebody else have a go. I would rather we try somebody who at least is economically numerate.
The issue as well is that I would have actually stopped short of what Piers Morgan said there. It's like, we did it, we screwed up, let's reverse everything and just pretend it didn't happen. I would have had at least a modicum of respect for that, like something basic like that, but they won't even go that far. They're just going to reverse one of the aspects while not dealing with any of the rest of it. What happens on the 14th of October when the theoretical 65 billion may or may not run out or may not get extended by the Bank of England? What's going to happen to pension funds then? They can't just quantitatively ease forever.
Someone who...
Or maybe they can.
He has a basic understanding of the economy. And Nadhim, I've got great respect for you. You always used to come on Good Morning Britain when a lot of your colleagues wouldn't, and I'd bellow away at you and you just take it, and great. And you were great on vaccines. But for you, honestly, to sit there and try and defend this, what I haven't heard from anybody at senior level in this party in the last 10 days is one word: sorry. Sorry to the country for what you have put the country through. You want to say it?
So, Piers, you said that...
One word.
You said, no, I'm going to tell you. Liz said, I've listened and I get it, which is why 95% of her economic policy, of her growth plan, she wanted to protect and will deliver. Right, the stuff we've just talked about.
But are you sorry about the damage that's been done?
And the 5% that was damaging, she cut, and as Wilfred said, you cut and you move forward. We've got 24 months to deliver. But Piers, no, hold a second. I'm going to tell you right now, if you give me a chance, ask yourself this question. What would Vladimir Putin want us to do? He'd want us to be divided.
It's so pathetic. He's just a pathetic little flabby worm, isn't he? Just will refuse to apologise, right? I'm glad Piers Morgan's pressing him on this, and just continue to go, oh, well, if we say sorry, we're letting Vladimir Putin win. Like, it's absolutely fucking preposterous. Obviously, the libs will fucking buy into this shit. Like, you know, if all the kind of people who are saying we have to endure the high fuel bills for the people of Ukraine, as if these things were, you know, intrinsically linked, and that we cannot do one without the other. Like, it's utterly pathetic. It's playground politics. And to be fair, Nadhim Zahawi is an idiot, so I'm not surprised. But even so, like, come on. As I said previously, it's literally like that he's treating the entirety of the population like we're all stupid. Like we all just have no idea what the hell we're going. We're just literally just kind of stumbling from kind of post to post through life, not understanding what's going on. No, we understand. We're not stupid, and we can see all the way through your, oh, well, why are you going to let Vladimir Putin, what would Vladimir Putin want to happen? It's so stupid. Like a Disney villain.
I did. Right now, because he's using energy. Oh, come on. Because he's using energy.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, come on. You can't say sorry because Vladimir Putin may not like it.
I said to you...
Nadine, people are laughing.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I just want to point that out.
As well they should.
Really? Do you not believe that Vladimir Putin is using energy, which is where the inflation is coming from, where countries around the world...
It's not just in energy where inflation's coming from. Inflation's coming from all parts. In fact, huge amounts of stuff is there's global supply chain issues. That was happening before the war even started when we were looking originally at inflation. It was supply chain issues because of the fact that overall global shipping had slowed to an absolute crawl during the coronavirus. Like, it's not just Vladimir Putin again. And people are right to laugh because it's pathetic. It is pathetic.
Are having to raise interest rates.
With respect, what does this have to do with a simple apology to the British people for the train wreck that has happened in the last 10 days?
I just said to you, Liz, in her conference, piece, said, I get it, and I changed...
That's not saying sorry, though, is it, Nadhim? It's not saying sorry.
I changed the policy.
Are you sorry?
Of course I'm sorry. Absolutely.
Thank you.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with saying, I get it, and I've listened, and I've acted, and 95% of what I want to do, I'm going to deliver.
No, but it was not just the 5% that was bad. It was the whole thing that was bad.
Deliver, and I'll drop the 5%. That's a good thing. But for you to say that Putin has nothing to do with inflation is...
I didn't say that.
No, he didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Sorry,
I said he had nothing to do with stopping you apologising.
Okay, so if you think he had something to do with inflation, then it has to do with interest rates going up.
So far, you've all...
Which countries have interest rates going up?
With respect, in the last 10 days, so far, for the monumental cock-up you did with this mini-budget, I've so far heard people blame the Queen and the funeral for what happened. You're now blaming Vladimir Putin, and I'm saying to you, actually, it's simpler than that. Your mini-budget caused the chaos.
OK, tell you what...
Do you not think Vladimir Putin is using energy as a tool?
You've made that point. You've made that point, Nadine.
Of course.
Has gone up. And countries around the world, bankers are having to increase interest rates.
But he didn't
both
do
of
your
you,
mini-budget.
I wonder what's happening in Norway, Nadhim. I wonder what's happening in Norway. I wonder what's happening to gas prices in Norway. Be very interesting to see what people are paying for gas in the mainland on Norway.
Major points. You both made your points. You're now repeating them. Fascinating that is. There's a forest of hands up here. So let's hear from loads of you. OK, so the woman there in the red jacket with the glasses.
I just want to say, she's only been in the job 3 weeks before the baying press pack descended upon her. She's had criticism about...
Oh no, the press reported on the things that she said and did. God, like these people, like the slightest bit of scrutiny, and these people are, oh, hashtag scum media, oh, hashtag back Boris, or they hate the right, or the news is woke, despite the fact that we literally had 5 uninterrupted years of bashing the jam man, right? Come on, these people are just like fundamentally unserious people.
Whatever she does, the country is not in a recession. The pound has bounced back. She's trying to open up our economy. Give her a chance. I hate to see somebody denigrated like that.
Woman here in the front.
I'm sure. How do those boots taste? Do they taste nice? They're ladies' boots now, so probably a lot nicer to lick.
I'm a tax advisor, and what I would like to understand, I understand the hypothetical principle that giving people more money to spend will mean that we grow the pie. Fantastic. What I want to understand is your assumption behind where people are going to spend that money and who is going to spend it. Because although you turned on the 45%, which was great, you also repealed IR35 rules that are going to make it extremely easy for people who are high net worth individuals to pay tax at 19% through public service companies, rather than paying their tax at 40, 20 or 45%. So you're not only taking away from people who are more likely to spend, the people who are less well off, which you could have contributed to by expanding the tax bands for the 20 and the 40%. You've also made it easier for people with more money to pay a lower rate of tax. And that's the part that I personally don't understand. There are professionals that have called this a fiscal plan for tax abuse.
You don't understand it. I understand it. They are mates with the Tories because these are rich people, and the Tories govern on behalf of the rich. It's not difficult. It's actually incredibly simple.
If you're going to fund benefits, if you're going to fund the NHS, I don't understand where it's going to come from, because the tax cuts aren't going to grow the...
Spoiler alert, they don't. They don't want to fund the NHS. They want to privatise it. They don't want to fund benefits. They want to immiserate people. Don't you guess it? They're bad people.
Economy, and they're certainly not going to fund any of the
IR35 is quite a kind of, dare I say, niche and quite specific thing. I mean, there are people who are not earning lots of money, like, you know, lower-paid IT specialists, what have you, who do want the IR35 thing to be repealed. It's a reasonably complex thing, if you'll forgive me. Let's see. Some people, you put your hands up now, you put, oh, look, here they are shooting up again. Right, yes, the man in the glasses.
We keep hearing that she's only been in power for 4 weeks. We should give her a chance. She's been a cabinet minister since 2012. She's been chief secretary to the Treasury. She's been the foreign secretary. She's had enough experience. She's had enough time to get ready for this.
All right. And the woman there.
Yes. This is a question for Mr. Zahawi, really. You've mentioned that the average household will pay, you know, £2,500 for their energy. I'm the mum of a family of 4, me and my husband, 2 young adult girls. We live in a 3-bed end terrace, which is energy efficient, and our bills are about £4,300 a year. So I would love to know how the government define this average household that we keep hearing so much about.
OK, and I'll come back to you on that. Yes, there's a man at the back there with a dark suit and white shirt. Yes.
Why is it so difficult for politicians to admit when they're at fault?
Well, I can ask. Lisa, do you want to answer that? I'm not saying, not that anyone's saying you're at fault, but I mean, do you want to just say that because we haven't heard from you for a bit?
So, I think that we operate in a climate in which politics has become incredibly adversarial, and somebody said at the beginning that they'd like to see us working together in the interests of the country. I think the difficulty is I have never worked with a government that has set their face against not just working with opposition parties, but working with their own party and with the public as well. A government that has no interest in taking people with them. I think that shouty exchange between Piers and Nadhim sort of summed it up for me. This is a government that is just incapable of saying sorry, and I think Nadhim is sorry, but he just couldn't say it.
Well, he did.
I think this is a government that is not only that, but has doubled down on crashing the economy. They announced these enormous unfunded tax cuts. And, you know, talk about giving people second chances. There are no second chances for people who can't pay their mortgages and find themselves in negative equity at risk of losing their home. There are no second chances for people who can't feed their kids and can't pay their rent and are facing eviction at the moment. And, you know, what I'd like to see...
But if she wasn't a charisma vacuum, she'd be a really good politician. She's hitting all the key notes, but having it through like a kind of weird, like, child type, she sounds a bit like a child who's just learned to talk. It's sad because she's saying all of the right things. She's 100% correct in everything that she's saying. But I don't, if she had a little bit more gravitas, if it was Angela Rayner saying this stuff, it would have come across a lot better.
From this government, actually, is not just saying we're sorry about one measure in this appalling package, but a contrition to say we got this catastrophically wrong and we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to sort this out. The question is not what were you thinking a few weeks ago, Nadhim. It's what on earth are you thinking now that you haven't made that commitment already?
OK, I'm going to take one more point for the audience. Yes, please.
Is Nadhim Zahawi an example of cabinet collective responsibility, with ministers being wheeled out to defend the indefensible in the early days of Truss's government, like happened throughout Johnson's, and this is just the beginning?
Right, Nadhim, look,
yeah, I was going to make the same point. It's absolutely right. Remember the whole Save Big Dog thing, the internal plan they had to make sure that Boris Johnson stayed as Prime Minister, where they would just send like endless fall guy after fall guy, not just going in and not just actually not speaking to the press, like wheeling out Matt Hancock or Grant Shapps or Gavin Williamson or whoever it is to face the relentless wrath of media people trying to hold them to account for the garbage that they've done. Not just that, but also people getting fired for this shit, for things that weren't even their fault to begin. Like Matt Hancock, how did things get so bad that I felt sorry for Matt Hancock? And to be fair though, I would feel more sorry. I feel that if he actually got fired for the thing that he did bad, which was his handling of being health secretary during the pandemic, rather than the thing that didn't really matter, which is him necking with somebody in number 10, which is suspiciously leaked footage. Yeah, it's interesting how they leaked it so that they could get rid of him without having to mention all of the things he did as health secretary during the pandemic.
And a lot of points, a lot of them coming at your direction. Would you like to answer that? You might want to help the lady out at the back who's saying, how do we agree this average household? Because you're clearly paying a lot more than £2,500.
It's based on average consumption of the average size of household. And of course, if you consume more than the average, you'll pay more than that. So I said the average will be £2,500. And I think it's the right thing to do for households and for businesses, of course. And of course, I take collective responsibility for what we do. Judge us by what we will deliver.
12 years.
Well, no, hold on a second.
She's been a present feature of every cabinet. Cameron, May, Johnson, and now.
We are a pro-growth cabinet. You are part
Presided
of the
over 12 years.
Anti-growth coalition.
12 years.
Yeah, the last time we had good growth was under Labour.
Of low growth and high taxes.
You want to put taxes up, Lisa. Tell us which taxes you would cut. At least we are putting a plan forward where we're going to freeze.
We voted against your tax rises on working people. I'll tell you the answer.
So that people invest. I don't think you talk about wanting corporation tax to be frozen at 19%. That means people will invest in this country confidently. Cutting tax for 31 million people, that's a good thing. Okay. What's your tax plan? You don't have one.
You asked me the answer. I'll tell you the answer. That those who have the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden. It is unconscionable that when oil and gas producers are making record profits, you're making working people pay. Not good enough.
And if you cared about tax receipts, tax take, rather than tax rate, you would actually have a tax-cutting plan.
This is nonsense Laffer curve shit that's been debunked enough already.
Stop, Nadhim, forgive me.